Okay guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are taking a look at the greatest common divisor. Okay, we have to take a look at greatest common divisor again. Yes, we have to. Okay, so let's go back to greatest common divisor of two numbers. So we let A and B be integers such that A is not 0 or B is not 0. The greatest common divisor of A and B is D if and only if D satisfy the following properties. Number one is that D divide A and D divide B. Number two, if you have other divisor, let's say C divide A and divide B, then C must be less than or equal to B. Less than or equal to D. Okay, so this give the property of greatest common divisor of AB being D. Now, we are going to find the greatest common divisor of the number that is more than 2 at the same time. Let's say we have n numbers, okay, n integers. So we let a1, a2, a3 all the way to an be integers such that ai is not 0 for some I. That means that all of these integer a cannot be 0 at the same time. Okay? So number one, D is a common divisor of all of these n integers if and only if D divide ai for all I equal to 1 all the way to n. Okay, so if you have D divide a1, D divide a2, and D divide a3, and all the way to the last one, D divide an, that means that D is a common divisor of these A, right? A1, A2, A3, all the way to AN. Okay? And next one, let's talk about greatest common divisor. Of course, when D is a greatest common divisor of all of these numbers, the number one thing that you need to have is that D divide all of these numbers, right? Okay, so D divide all of these numbers. That's the first property. And then, just like the greatest common divisor of just two numbers, if you want to make sure that D is the greatest common divisor of all of these numbers, you need to have another divisor, which is C, and this other divisor that divide all the A right here must be less than or equal to D. So for the second property or the second criteria, C must divide A1, C divide A2, and C divide A3, and all the way to the last one, C divide AN. If you assume this one, then, and if you have this one, C divide all the number from A1 to AN, C must be less than or equal to D. From these two properties, we gotta have D is going to be the greatest common divisor of A1, A2, A3, all the way to AN. Okay, so now let's take a look at the sum of the properties of greatest common divisor. So it's quite similar to the greatest common divisor of just two numbers. Now the first one is the greatest common divisor of A1, A2, all the way to AN always exists and it is unique. Number two, if you have to find the greatest common divisor of n numbers, you can find the greatest common divisor of first n-1 numbers, right? Then you're gonna have you're gonna have greatest common divisor, which is turns out to be just a. Then you're gonna have greatest common divisor of a and and then you can calculate the greatest common divisor of these two numbers. Or you might find the greatest common divisor of the last two number first. Okay, and then you're gonna have to find the greatest common divisor of this one and the rest of the number. So the rest of the number will be n minus 2 terms. Okay, that's the second property. Now the third property is, if D is the greatest common divisor of A1, A2 all the way to AN, there exist integers x1, x2, x3 all the way to xn such that D is the sum of A1, x1 plus A2, x2 plus A3, x3 and plus all the way to AN, xn. Just like what we have in sum of theorem. I cannot remember the number. If you have D equal to the greatest common divisor of A and B, then there exists x and y, which are integers, such that D equal to ax plus by. Okay, that's the first property. The fourth property is, if you let D to be the greatest common divisor of A1, A2 all the way to AN, then for any integer C, if C divide AI, C will divide the greatest common divisor. So if you have C divide A and C divide D, then what do we have? C will divide the greatest common divisor of, let me write B. So C will divide the greatest common divisor of B. And the last one, if D is the greatest common divisor of A1, A2, A3 all the way to AN, if this greatest common divisor is 1, okay? The greatest common divisor is 1 if and only if there exists x1, x2, x3 all the way to xn, which are integers such that the sum of a1, x1, a2, x2, a3, x3 all the way to an, xn equals to 1. Just like what we have in this one, if you have greatest common divisor of a and b equals 1, you can have x and y, which are integer, such that ax plus by equals 1. Okay, so if you know all the properties of the greatest common divisor of the two numbers, you can apply some of the properties to deal with this. Okay, to deal with greatest common divisor of the number that is more than 2. Now let's find the following greatest common divisor. These are greatest common divisor of 3 numbers. Okay, let's find it. So for this one right here, you have 3 numbers. You might start with the greatest common divisor of 12 and 72. Okay, what is the greatest common divisor of 12 and 72? It's 12, right? This one is 12. Okay, is 12, and the greatest common divisor of 12 and 8 is 6. Okay, let's do it fast. All right, and what about this one here, the greatest common divisor of 42, 49 and 19? So what we have is, I want to start with the greatest common divisor of the last 2 numbers, which is 49 and 19. So the greatest common divisor of 49 and 19 is 1, okay? Because 19 is a prime. And the greatest common divisor of 42 and 1 is just 1, okay? And this one right here, what can we do? So the greatest common divisor of 198 and 288 and 500 512. So what can we do with this? I think we can start with the greatest common divisor of, okay, with let me start with this one. So we're gonna have the greatest common divisor of 198, 288, and 152. Okay, so I think this one is going to be, okay, I gotta have 2 times 99, right? And 2 times 144, okay? And 5, 1, 2. Do not forget that if you have the greatest common divisor of MA and MB, it will be equal to M times the greatest common divisor of A and B. So you're gonna have 2 times the greatest common divisor of 99 and 144, 500, 512, okay? And this is 99 and this is 144. Okay, do we have common factor from here? So 99, it seems that 99 is 3 times 33. 444 is 3 times, okay, let me think, is 4 times what? 4 times 8, right? 48. Okay, let's move on. So 33, it will becomes 3 times 3 times 11. For 48 is going to be 3 times, okay, 3 times 16, right? So it turns out to be 9 times 11. For this one is 9 times 11. For this one here is 9 times 16. Okay, so let's try. So we're gonna have 2 times 99 is 9 times 11. 144 is 9 times 16. Okay. Then we're gonna have 2 times 9 times is 11 and 16. And 5, 1, 2. So we're gonna have 18 times greatest common divisor of 1 and 16 and 5, 1, 2. Okay, let me continue. So we want to start with this. Okay, so the greatest common divisor of 11 and 16 is just 1, right? Turns out to be 1. So now we gotta have 18 and 512. Okay. So what do we have next? We could have 2 times 9 and 2 times 2, 5, 6. Okay. Then we could have 2 greatest common divisor of 9 and 256. And the greatest common divisor of 9 and 226, it turns out to be just 1. Okay. So it turns out to be 2 times 1, which is 2. Alright, let's go to this one. Right now we have negative number minus 997. Okay, so let's start with 1819, 3587 minus 997. Okay, so where should we start? I think we need to start with these 2 numbers. Okay, so we're gonna have the greatest common divisor of 1819, 3587 and minus 997. Okay, now let's find the greatest common divisor of 1819, 3587 first. I think it's quite difficult to do, so I want to start with division algorithm. So we gotta have 3, 5, 8, 7. I will divide this number by 1819. So we gotta have 1819 times what, which number? So it's 1, right? Plus which number? Okay, 3, 5, 8, 7 minus 1819. So we're gonna have 11768. Okay, it's greater than the divisor. So right now we gotta have 1819 3587, which is 1819 1768. Okay, so I gotta write it as 1768 1819. Okay, so let divide 1819 by 1769. So 1819 and 1769 times 1, right? Plus which one? Okay, plus, okay, let me think. Plus 48, right? Plus 48. Okay, so it turns out to be 1769 1816, which is 1769 and 48. That means that we're gonna have 48 1769. Now let's find the greatest common divisor of this number. So we're gonna have 1769 and we divide it by 48. So what do we have? Okay, multiply by which number? So let me think. Okay, let me think. So we're gonna have, let me choose 36. Let me choose 36. Okay, so what do we have next? 36, you need to add, okay, 48 times 36. So what do we have here? What is the remainder? The remainder is 41. So we gotta have the greatest common divisor of 48 and 1769 equal to 48 and 41, which is just 1. Okay, just 1. Great. So that means that the greatest common divisor of 1819 3578 is 1. Okay, now let's move faster. This one right here right now becomes 1 and minus 997, and it turns out to be just 1. That's it. Okay, and this is how to find the greatest common divisor of more than 2 numbers. You might start with the greatest common divisor of just 2 numbers. Okay, and that's it for this video.